is when we just go,
Oh, what's happening? This is real authentic self. We're all
this is my good
human.
side.
This is my good side. How do you guys take photos?
Men, we were saying this before, but men and women in a group, like all the women know immediately they were good side, and all the men just
They cross their arms.
we freak out.
But they also like fill up their chests, and they like set back a bit.
Yeah, it's like the shaky smile. Yeah.
Show us your real authentic self.
Anyway,
Anyway, we were rolling. We're in it.
great.
So you are not feeling so great today.
Yeah, I mean, you asked me, like, how am I doing? I feel like every podcast I go on, or like I see someone go on, they've like triumphed something, you know, and they like seem like they're at the end of this journey, and you're like hearing this wisdom, and then I feel like, I don't know if that's not real, but they're at least more consistent than anyone I've ever met, you know, because like,
Yeah.
I don't know, yeah, it's been a struggle. I got sick over the last 2 months. It's been like a mental game, you know, just like gut health, which is also like a mystery science for the world, you know, and they're getting counter advice from everyone. You may never know the root of it, but it's like very humbling. It's very humbling.
So you are top notch today.
Top notch. I'm feeling good right now.
All right. Well, we'll see you in 10 minutes. I love this because I love that you're not feeling so great. I love it for you. I'm sorry about the context.
Let's exploit this.
You're right, because I think there's this idea, well, we've lived in this world for the last like 10 or so years, more than that, but like more real and tangibly on our phones, where everything's perfect and this veneer of success and achievement and we've done all these things and we're great. And I feel like people talk about their hard struggles, but it's never really like a live and a present thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like I see another side of it where people get really good at intellectualizing the problem, because this is what I do. It's like my pattern basically, which is I can tell you exactly what's wrong at a given moment, you know, and I'm feeling it. You know, people like feel it versus intellectualize it. It's almost become sexy to suffer in some way too. You know, where like it's the joke is like our parents' generation was like under therapized, we're over therapized. We maybe have a deeply pathologizing perspective on our own mental state, you know, I'm this, I'm that. And I don't know if that always helps either, you know, it kind of like stunts us from accepting whatever's happening to us.
Yeah, the diagnosis.
Yeah.
The diagnosis label. I have a label, now I'm going to attach myself to it. Or give myself this sickness or a disease, and then we live it.
It's very true.
But now I'm like, okay, well, what's the spiritual meaning? My toe hurts. I was in breathwork this morning and I've got this really sharp pain through my middle finger, and I haven't looked it up yet.
Yeah.
But
of course you're going to look it up. You know, it has some meaning.
What's the spiritual meaning of pain in my middle finger?
Yeah.
Probably guess that.
Actually.
But what I love, I asked you, well, I didn't really ask you, I didn't really tell you what this whole thing was about, but I love you and we have fun together on the very few times we've met. And firstly, you're building a business in what feels like a very relevant space. So congrats. But really I actually haven't heard your story of how you got to this place. And what struck me about you in the limited interaction that we've had is what I gravitate towards people in life now is the ones who are living from this place of authenticity. And I don't mean that in like that sounds a bit cliche and cheesy, but people who, there's a magnetism that is very real and very true. And the fact that you just said, yeah, I'm not feeling so great, that's proof of it, you know, people who are living from that place of honesty. So yeah, I'd love to actually hear your story of how did you get you to where you
I
are
was
today?
born.
I was born. Yeah, okay, so where'd you grow up?
I grew up in a very rural town next to Hartford, Connecticut. Was like, yeah, my dad was born and raised in Sweden. He met my mom.
Hence the Swedish.
Yeah, they got married in like 6 weeks. They had my sister, and then 2 years later they had me. And we moved to this like very rural town in Connecticut for my dad's job, and then stayed there. It was like a very quiet. There was like 10,000 people in the town, which is wild. It's like everyone kind of knows everyone's business. But when I was 17, we were all like, it's time. I think my parents were like, it's time to go, you know? And then I went to college in Boston, which was great. There was something that struck me like super early. And I had a very big blessing of having an older sister, and we have so much in common now, where obviously she was my mortal enemy for years, you know? I'm sorry, Steph, if you're listening to this, but now we're very close. But she was 2 years ahead of me, you know? And I kept seeing all the people in her grade or doing their job or doing their internships, whatever it was. And I don't know, I saw a really large amount of this like cognitive dissonance where like people were getting a job or they were getting a certain education, and there was a way that they spoke about it that almost seemed cookie, like it seemed like it's the same response, you know, it was like a pre-programming, you know, because people want to make their parents happy, they want to feel safe. It's so hard to be an adult, you know, like, and hard to grow into a career. And when you're so young, especially in America, you have to make like the biggest financial decision of your life, which is whether or not you should get in extreme amounts of debt at a very early age for a certain career that may not even be there for you. And so it just struck me really early, like 17 or 18, that like there was something really fishy off in the traditional system. And the people that I asked that had like the dream job or the dream education, it didn't seem like they were really telling the truth, you know, if they were happy or not. And yeah, kind of set down my path of just like starting businesses and just like trying that path, and started that when I was like 18 in just like real estate, and then very quickly into like the software world at the time. Yeah.
So you skipped out the whole college?
No, I went to college. So I was there, and I was like, my dream was like, I want to have a great resume to never use it, you know? And just like, I think that's probably some like rebellious child of like proving to your parents of like, hey, you don't need to have this to succeed in the world, you know? Like even where today and the way education is molding, if I had kids right now, it's not super clear to me that university is a huge value, you know? Do I really believe that our educational system is making our kids more prepared for a job market that is so confusing that we as adults don't even fully know what it's going to look like? I'm super skeptical, you know? But yeah, then I went directly and we were building a business like in the music industry, and that was like a wild journey. Like Spotify at the time had an open API, meaning you could like build on top of their software. And we had all these ideas around working with creators and athletes and how music synchronized between people in different parts of the world could bring them together. And like imagine LeBron James in the locker room before the NBA final, and you could like listen to what he's listening to, or your best friend, or a long distance relationship, you know, you're like listening to music at the same time. And that was like the theory, you know, if like we could really build a social connection and build on top of Spotify. And we did. And then the Spotify ecosystem like totally closed, you know, like they closed everything. And then that basically shuttered the business in some way. You know, we tried to keep going, but it was a first like really painful lesson in startups of like, you can work for a couple years, a few years, you can get momentum, things can feel really great. And then there's one person at one of these big companies and they make a decision and like your whole life just like pivots.
I feel like that's the essence of, you talk about people being so confused in today's economy and job market and whatever. Things are dying overnight. You know, an industry can collapse overnight. Obviously with AI happening, you know, there's so much which is being born and so much which is dying. And it feels like the speed of that process is happening quicker than ever. And that's terrifying because I think, you know, our parents' generation, it was like one job in this economy or this industry is going to be stable for life. And that's definitely my dad's approach. And that just isn't the reality. Even something as stable as like, I don't know, you know, big automotive, whatever, you just don't know these days. It's okay. So how did you navigate that? When was that?
So that was when I was 20. Okay. And then it's the whole, like, you're going to fail a bunch of times, you know? And I didn't have a family. Like I had the ability to take bigger risks at that time. And then a roommate and I started another business. It was called Darkroom, which is still around today, darkroom.com. It like helps photographers, graphic designers sell their physical work. So it was kind of like this insight that there was this gap in the market where creators who were selling physical representations of their art, so let's just say a photographer selling a big frame piece, they could go list their art on like a marketplace, but then they're selling their like fine art next to a like phone case or a pillowcase, you know, and they didn't have control, like creative control. And then most creators were not like represented by high-end galleries. And there was a huge market in between, you know, which needed to have like really affordable options to sell their art and a lightweight technology to be able to like list and push that art publicly. And so we launched that and scaled it up to like 100,000 plus photographers, ran that for like 5 or 6 years. My co-founder Theo still runs that business. And then took a step back and I was personally just getting a little burnt out, and just having worked for so long, even on like specific problems, it can just burn you out. It can be repetitive, and just had invested and I got really passionate about like the food space and just like good for you food products, and I like really disliked the like major CPG companies that I felt like were poisoning America, and started investing in different companies in that space, and then started to, because I was in the technology creator economy space for so long, started to look at their technology on the creator side, and no one was really passionate about the tool they were using, which was wild to us. It was like these brands that do 500 million in revenue being like, yeah, we use that tool to like help us partner with creators. And maybe just as like a description of what that means, like whenever you see a creator partner with a brand on Instagram, you're scrolling Instagram stories, it's either an ad or it's like a native placement. There was some software in between that relationship, most likely, that helped reach out to the creator, broker the deal. Maybe there's even like tracking and attribution as to like how many people are going to actually buy the product. Maybe there's an advertising component. And so we kind of touched that whole ecosystem and that whole workflow. And that company is called Superfiliate. And basically we serve the influencer marketer and paid media teams at, CPG e-commerce brands, mainly in the Shopify ecosystem, but that's like broadening now. But yeah, it's so interesting, like that, like initial passion in the food space has really like expanded now. And I think what's really cool is consumers are getting so smart in such a beautiful way, particularly with both creators and quality of products, where we talked about authenticity earlier, but I really believe in a perfectly competitive market, like the best products that are the best for you win out over time. And obviously it means different things in different markets. But we see that within our company, like the companies that are the good for you CPG products are the ones that are succeeding, and the ones that creators want to work with, because it's easier to tell the story. It's easier to have a direct relationship with this thing that's actually making a difference in your life. And there's a lot of bloat in the creator economy around getting paid or getting this deal or that deal. But I think the consumer base and all of us on Instagram, we're so adapted to Instagram and TikTok and getting sold to. It's not that we don't like it binarily. You just have to be real when you're selling a product. And so we help like kind of facilitate that interaction.
And so, because obviously that's like, the influencer market has changed over the last 10 years or so, even that old. Yeah. And I guess like as consumers, we're getting so tuned into when we're being sold. And like we know that we're being sold. But in terms of the power of authenticity, do you think we're going to get to a place where it has to be real? Like, how do you see the influencer and creator market changing and how people are sharing? Like, overnight, this whole industry has been created for, I think now every like teenager wants to be an influencer.
A creator.
Yeah, creator.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, I think ads aren't inherently a bad thing, right? If I get the right ad to me, that is like a product that I really want to adopt a new habit in my life, amazing, and whether or not I believe the creator's presentation of the value proposition of that product is probably happening at a level of my subconscious that I don't even register at first. Like I think as consumers, we watch the algorithms play certain ads in front of us, they're hoping that the psychographics of that product overlap a need within our own lives. And I think there's a part of the subconscious that just like hears the creator right away and either chooses to say, oh, I trust this person and I'm more interested in hear what they say, or I don't trust this person necessarily, but I'm still interested in like the general gist of the product and I'll do my own research, so it's not even binarily on whether or not I'll buy it if it's not authentic. If it's authentic, I think it's like a very handheld process where I feel like I'm building an intimate connection with the person. And maybe I even know the creator, like maybe I just follow them and I trust them as a curator of products. Like I really view creators as curators. And whether or not, we trust them at an advertising level or to curate certain types of products for our lives is such a deeply personal question. And obviously make your own decisions, but it's really cool when you think about the decentralization of the information, where we grew up on TV ads and like, I don't know, it's with more competition, I think more authenticity naturally arises from it because consumers are smarter.
I love, firstly, decentralization, favorite word of the moment. because I feel like that's the theme of in my work, which is kind of headhunting. I got really clear that I want to work with mission-driven, purpose-driven companies. And then there was a company that reached out to me earlier this year that they're in the TV ad space. And at first I was like, well, this is so unaligned with my values. But then the way that they talked about what they're actually doing is, and they could actually be a sponsor for this. So hi, Orca.
But then they gave us 6-figure contract.
Well, no, the way that Mike, who he reached out to me and said, hey, my startup's growing. And I was like, cool. TV ad space.
Yeah.
And then the way that he described it was, you have this archaic TV industry, ad industry, where it's like 3 big players who've just got all the power and the control of this like multi-billion-dollar revenue industry.
Yeah.
And essentially he's creating something which is decentralizing that and putting the power back into the hands of the people.
Cool.
And so that was a reframe for me of like, I thought purpose and mission driven had to be doing good in some way, and that it had to look a certain way, like the Mudwaters and the Ice Plunge and the cool sexy brands that are doing the cool things in the world. And then I realized, like, wait, this decentralization is happening across so many industries in ways that I never thought would be like cool and sexy and conscious.
Totally. Yeah. I think the equivalent there is like consumerism isn't bad or good, right? If uncontrolled, it can turn into materialism, and then it can definitely be negative. It has negative externalities from it. Absolutely. It 100% does, whether it's pollution or overconsumption or trying to fill a void that's there or coping mechanisms, 100%. But does that mean that we're going to ignore that it's kind of a psychological truth of how we consume products? Like we want these things. And so it's more about finding the alignment. So like people will, even if we wanted everyone in the world to stop watching TV or watch TV less, is that really going to happen? So like what if you just chose to show them things that they liked more, or that, if like the ads on the TV are more aligned with the things that they want to do in their life or become amazing. But also there's a dark side of that too, which is like people want, it's not all positive habit forming, so.
It's not?
Yeah. And I don't know, it's so tricky. I don't think we're the arbiters of what's good and bad there,
Yeah.
We almost have like grandiose perspective on we should or shouldn't do this because like this is binarily bad.
People are always going to be wanting, as a friend described the internet, tits and tacos at tribalism. Like that. It's like what sex sells, money sells.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just read it. Like that's what gets people's attention. Like there's a primal aspect of what the whole advertising industry is built off. As a man, if you have this money and drive this car, then you will be worthy. As a woman, if you look a certain way, and like the other, there's a lot of crossovers in between those. But then, a man will want you, kind of thing. He'll be worthy, and it's this idea. I think it kind of brings me back to, I tried to leave LA 3 times. Like I was like, I'm out of here, piecing out, and I kept being brought back for reasons that I didn't know at the time. And what I now see is this place has been broadcasting a message to the world for 100 years. Like the energetics of LA, Hollywood, the whole thing have been broadcasting that set of values of, as a man, look a certain, man, woman, looks, money, car, the whole thing. And that's what make you happy. And I think there's something, just the fact that we're even in this space, and in your 2-second tour, like you saw 20 people that in being in the creator space, there seems to be something very electric happening, hazard a guess, in Venice right now, or LA right now, which is a different set of values being broadcast. And I feel like the same energy is being tapped into. Like this place has broadcast a message. It was Hollywood, now it's like creators. But there's some energy to tap into here, which I think is like, I don't know, it's almost like this, it feels revolutionary.
Yeah. Creators just at a primitive allow for more ideas and to come up and surface, and it's very public. It's a very public forum. So like, I think we grew up at a time where there was like X amount of news sources, that is literally gone asymptotic, you cannot keep up with the amount of things that are happening in the news. Because what does the news even mean? Like I trust a lot of the creators I follow more than most people. You know, like there's a really deep, intimate connection, and I'm vetting those creators who I've never met deeply. You know,
what a state of responsibility they hold.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
How do you think that side of stuff is? Do you think the creators, as we know it, have a level of responsibility that they don't know how to handle?
Creator's such a big word, you know, like what does it mean? It means you could be anything. You could be a practitioner of anything in the world, and then you choose to record it and make content around it, you know, and, you know, so it's as deep as a question as like, well, how broad can a creator be, you know, and what categories are they in? Like, do I think the person who is doing fashion get readies with me has the same responsibility as like a, you know, therapist who's putting out how people should live their lives? Like, it's probably a little different, you know, and like people engage with the first one in a more playful way, you know, and the others is they're like searching for answers. So I think creators have like first principle questions to ask themselves, which is, why are people coming to me for the information that I'm putting out? And then what responsibility do I take for that?
Yeah, there's this line that I think about the communication piece, and there was a friend, Matt, who was in a couple of weeks ago. He said that communication is the most innovative form of technology there is. And that when he's told that to me like a few months ago, it really sat with me, because I'm like, here we are trying to create all these systems and, you know, scalable pieces of software where we can better our lives, basically. Whereas the technology that we're actually using right now is the most innovative there is. And so I love what you just said around like the decentralization of communication into so many, because there's so much communication that's happening with that one creator, and how people are interpreting one message, or even not just the creator, anyone, any news source, any information across. Like Age of Aquarius is Age of Information, which is super rad. But it's how you touched on it, like we used to have just like a few news sources, and now we have so many. I've got even on my phone, I don't have a news source on that, but I've got my email, I've got my WhatsApp, I've got my Instagram, I've got YouTube,
I mean, isn't that news?
Yeah,
like,
it's news.
I mean, YouTube is absolutely news.
Okay, definitely
YouTube is probably the most viewed news network in the world.
True.
By far. What is news is a primitive, but yeah.
So this like idea of like something being broadcast out to so many people, and then the different interpretations of how it is received, whether it's just like information that is like informative about this is happening in the world, or it's information which is being used as a catalyst for growth, which is kind of what like the intention for this is how can the way that you speak and the communication that and the words that come out of your mouth, for some people they just won't hear it at all. They're like, no, can't hear this shit. This guy's whatever. This guy didn't get ready.
What about you?
This guy didn't get ready with me on Instagram this morning. But for some people, the way that you put your words together is really gonna resonate. And not just obviously on this, but just like in any conversation in the world. Like that's what was initially like, that's how I kind of sparked with you. It's like the way that we communicated was so light and playful. And that has like a magic resonance with the way that people connect. So it's how I'm thinking about this. On that point, like the way that you talked about building, like where you got from Connecticut to here, you make it sound like so fun and playful. Is that the case?
No, I mean, it was like, I feel like I've lived multiple times there. And I actually was talking to a friend about this the other day, because I've been going through kind of a hard time just in general. And I would say this business is the most successful one by far, and it's really crushing it and doing well. And we have a big team and like great customers. And I would have thought that this would have been the moment that I was like so elated, you know? And there was like this saying my friend said the other day, it's like, he who wants to be exalted will be humbled, and he who's humbled will be exalted, you know, or he who is humble will be exalted. Yeah. And that was so interesting, because I didn't know if subconsciously I was trying to exalt myself or was an egoic pursuit, but of course there's a part of that as well, you know. And I got really sick in the last like year or two, and then just in the last couple of months I've been really sick, and it's so humbling, you know? You ideally build this vessel that you can now contain some of the success in, but you also kind of want all that less, like all of it less. And if the other things had been as successful, I think it would have put me on a path that I would have blinded me, you know, to actually living a fulfilled life, you know, where I can connect with other people. And like, I really think my purpose in life is to help other people build their ideas and dreams and businesses. And that's very clear to me now. And it wouldn't have been clear to me then. And so like the ups and downs then, I would say, were so different than the ups and downs now. Like they were more, there's like a mask with the ego where you're like almost like safe, you know, you're like, you're pursuing this thing. If it fails, it's part of the identity with all of it. And then I think now that I've pulled and abstracted all the way from it, it's actually more existential. And it's actually not always very helpful to be in the existential questions for too long. But yeah, it's been bumpy. It's been really bumpy.
It's like your capacity to hold. I was having this conversation with someone yesterday. It's just like the capacity to hold gets different. Like the challenges of growing and evolving and being on this path of committed to self-discovery and I don't say self-mastery, but definitely self-evolution. You know, a couple of years ago, like I was like so coming up against the money challenges and just like, how am I like, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing and why is it not working out? And like, I'm at this place now where things are starting to go like this vision, you know, this like music, I'm making music, whole collective is starting to materialize. Like even the conversation I had with someone yesterday about the business, I'm like, my brain's overnight, like I was totally whirring this morning because I was like, oh wait, that is the direction I need to go in terms of agency. And so the challenges are just like, it's the capacity to hold it. I think that's what I'm coming up against, is just like the capacity to hold it. And kind of what I just heard in yours was kind of a similar, it's like the existential capacity to just hold these visions that are big, you know? You're bringing in like so much into the world. And I love that you just kind of touched on this point, which was you have everything that you thought was going to be like the marker of great success, and here you are feeling like shit.
Yeah, it's so real.
God's funny.
It's so real. Yeah, but I'm very grateful that that's true. Sometimes, you know, sometimes I'm like, I'll give me a couple of days, you know, I want like, and then at some point you have a negativity bias, you know, and so it's really hard to know. There's so many people struggling. I think I'm really trying to get my friends together to do this, where like once a week, everyone either texts or calls each other and says like, what is the most irrational fear you held this week for the longest? Because like, it's wild. Yeah. And it's very,
what was yours?
It's very, hold on. It's very humbling, but it's actually very like unifying. It's like Buddhism, right? Where like you're suffering, but so are all these other people. And sometimes we think myopically and we think like, it's my world, I'm suffering. And you just think about yourself, you know, and you have to laugh a little bit around how ridiculous some of your like fears are, you know, like I have a version of like OCD and I'll just loop on thoughts for ages, you know, and then I'll break out of them, because you break an OCD loop by being like, yeah, that could happen. Or, you know, like OCD hates uncertainty basically. And this search for like certainty and control is just the fuel for loops, doom loops, anxiety. So yeah.
The mental spinning, I try and do a fear inventory when I'm getting into that place. A fear inventory. I'm like, write down all my just like totally irrational fears. And it's so insane. Yeah. Like the number of, sometimes I catch myself, I'm like, oh, I look like a pretty normal person from the outside. And I'm like, inside, I'm like, wait, what the fuck? All, yeah. And there's a you know, a lot of my path has been through 12-step recovery. And so I go to, you know, meetings several times a week, and like that's part of the process, is hearing like, oh, wait, I'm not alone. Mm-hmm. Everyone else is just as insane as I am. Mm-hmm. And there's something that is very, I feel like the way that we live on our phones and our culture that just has kind of induced this sense of separation of like, this is how you're supposed to live, and like, well, I'm not that. but it's all surface level. Whereas if I think about like if we used to live in caves, did people even have like existential crises back when we lived in?
Certainly.
Did they?
I mean, about food.
Yeah, good point.
You know, I mean, I think like.
But they were in it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so hard to know. You know,
You weren't alive back then.
Maybe I was. I mean, I feel like there's a romanticization of like pre-phones or pre-technology, and the classic cliche narrative is like we've never been more disconnected as we're really connected, which is really true. Like the pendulum swings for sure, but it was an inevitability that it's going to happen. Like we're only 30 years into like the internet, and we're close to a level of artificial intelligence that is scary and terrifying, you know? And
it's actually such a mindfuck to think about that. Like
yeah,
30 years.
It's young. It's very young. It's so young.
Like a year. Wow.
Yeah, and let's say 35, 40 based on.
But even just like I think about a year is like nothing, you know. So a lot can happen in a year, but 30 years, wow, we've created artificial intelligence.
Yeah. And also like we look at phones as this like deeply unnatural thing, and the truth is it's a collection of
man-made
minerals from the earth, and like electrons are flying through it, and like it's kind of an emergent property of us as a species. Yeah. And so I don't think our brains have adapted neurochemically to what can be possible there, because it's like a circus inside of it. Like think about swiping on Instagram stories. I was thinking about this the other day. If you're on TikTok or Instagram stories and you're swiping sideways or up, imagine being in a room with 50 people, and then you go to someone, you look at them and you go, and then they try to entertain you, and then you go no, and then you move to the next person and you're like no, and you move to the next person. It's like we weren't meant to have that type of like autonomy when it comes to a level of social interaction, because it sometimes feels like a two-way social interaction that you're involved in. And I think our brains are slowly adapting, but it seems like the technology is pacing faster than our brain will adapt. And so now we have all these things to cope, you know, where like, okay, we shut off our phones if we're together. And the question is like, do we really make progress there before the next iteration of all this comes, whether it's augmented reality or brain-computer interface? And I'm just telling you, I'm not going to be the first billion people on a brain-computer interface, you know, unless it solves, like, I mean, you know, it's kind of like we always say these things and then you're like, all right, then they're like, hey, your anxiety is gone. You know, it's actually just net positive for me. Like they'll start with the older population in brain-computer interfaces.
But you really think so?
Yeah, it's already happening. I mean, like there's already, I think there's something
so many
like,
feelings about this.
I mean, so I do too. There's already like hundreds of thousands of people that have a version of like a brain-computer interface, but they're much more simplified versions. They're like electrodes in the brain for Parkinson's patients.
Okay.
You know, and you know, there's videos where there's a person talking completely normally and they'll shut off the electrode, and then within minutes they're shaking and their tongue is curling and their brain is going back towards the symptomatic mode of Parkinson's. So like it starts with neurodegenerative diseases, or it starts with like quadriplegics or paraplegics, but it's going to start to then go into like, you know, the older population where maybe they can't see or they can't hear, they can't think, and they have dementia. Dementia is such a big killer of the population. And I feel like we're going to get to a point where if those companies focus on that vertical, Grandpa's going to go in not really remembering a lot and not being able to see a lot, and he's going to come out not just at 100%, but he's going to be able to like be at 120%, you know, or maybe he's going to see like a mile, you know?
It's so funny. Like I'm having this live experience right now of like, as soon as you say like basically computer chip in the brain, I'd be like, absolutely no way. And then what I'm hearing is like one of my most irrational, well, not irrational, but like biggest fears is like my parents, my dad getting to a place of him losing cognitive function, you know, getting dementia or Alzheimer's, all those things. And like us, it's not so much the responsibility of having to care for them, but it's just, I guess it's just the pain of seeing who he is today, who he has been. And then he has no diagnosis or anything at the moment today. And it's a fear of like, we see that broadcast everywhere, you know, we see the pain of what Alzheimer's and dementia, you know, that causes. So even as you're talking about the computer chip in the brain, literally in space of 2 seconds, I've just gone from like, no way to like, oh wait, maybe.
Yeah. I'm definitely really afraid of it, for sure. You know, there's a part of me that thinks, you could get it. And I'm like, hey, are you still? And you go, yeah. And I don't think we can really prove that there's not a subconscious version of you that's like, get me out of here, you know?
Feels so Black Mirror.
Yeah, very Black Mirror. Literally, it's like actually a full episode, the Christmas one. Yeah, I'm just very curious where it goes. I'm in no rush, and let's see what the next devices are. But I just don't think we're fully ready for where AIs are going, you know, and AI is going generally, and it's really uncomfortable. I haven't really had as much existential feelings around it until the last like few months, just seeing the pace.
I need to connect with Jesh around what he's building. I think I've talked to you about the AI thing, but it's this idea of, you know, AI, the current version of ChatGPT, as we know, it's the representation of it is such a poor representation of humanity, because it's eaten the internet, and like 99% of the internet was made by 1% of the population. So even by its inherent design, it is not representing humanity. And so what he's creating, and it's the first time I've ever been hopeful about, okay, well, not that we're doomed and with art, because, you know, but how do you build something different? And the two components is, one, it has to be, what would a good system, what would a good alternative of artificial intelligence look like? It's one where it's actually has proper representation. So it's got, you know, all the aspects of humanity online, not just like 5 white guys in San Francisco. Ages, emotion, like it doesn't just have the intelligent function, like the cognitive function, but it's got the emotions, it's got all the other aspects of us that make us human. That's the first component. And then secondly, the fact that it's owned by the individual. Because at the moment, artificial AI is owned by the corporations or whoever's making it, and like it separates, we're just like the meat sticks that are being used. So is there a system that we own, decentralized, you know? So that's kind of where I'm starting to, but similarly, like a year ago, when you said AI to me, I was like, hell no, no way. And then through this creative world that somehow managed to make our phones and the microphones out of natural materials at one point, you know, my ideas are getting changed, like in the 5 minutes around brain chips. All right, I think it's this idea of I can't remember who says it, and maybe you know, but the thing that will make us survive is our adaptability.
I said that.
You said that.
No.
I think it's like Victor Frankl or something like that. I love, because you are also, by all guesses, a deeply spiritual person. Do you think that's a fair comment?
How would you define spiritual?
Connection to something greater, maybe a connection to a higher purpose or meaning in life. I don't think it has to look in terms of a certain universe, God, religion. But I think the root of most mental suffering is when we're so caught in our own head and we're so self-centered. Like, depressed people are the most self-centered people. I know that place. And so by default, the only way to get out of that mental funk is to get outside of yourself. And so I think from my perspective, being spiritual and building a life and building a business and building family and relationships and a place in the world, to do that in relationship with something higher than yourself. I think that's a fair comment.
I do. I feel when you were saying that, the self-centeredness, you know, being defensive, you know, being like, oh wow, it really is. Because I would say that I'm very spiritual and connected to the people around me and have a belief in what this is about, that I'm not very tied to, but I'm very flexible into like what the meaning of life is and purpose of life and the purpose of my life within that. And when I really think about how connected to what I believe in, I think that's when I'm suffering, the connection wanes. You know, sometimes for some people it deepens, and sometimes it's a crutch, and sometimes it isn't. Like, there are moments where I wish I was deeply religious, you know, where I was like, oh, it'd be so nice, you know, to like really believe in a certain religion. And I'm so open to so many of the things that are possible, whether it's spiritual, religious, and that doesn't always help me. Like, you know, I actually want to believe more deeply in the things that are there, but then I feel a connection that wanes and strengthens in different moments. And definitely when I'm in the most depressive, anxious state, it weakens the most. But I reach for it, I'm like reaching for it and trying to use it as grounding. And yeah, it's scary. You're kind of like, what is this built on? Is it built on soil? And then you build the spiritual connection, and then you're like, is it my crutch? What if I lose that spiritual connection? Do I lose my stability at the same time? And the answer is like, it depends on the person.
Yes, you're gonna die.
Yeah, I mean, it just does, And so I want to say that I have a deep spiritual belief that grounds me all the time. But the more I think about like the narrative around suffering, it's clear that the connection to it is like weaker than I thought. But I want it to be stronger.
You got a lifetime ahead of you.
Yeah.
Who knows what's gonna happen? We haven't seen you at your worst yet. I hope not. Wait, that sounds bad. Yeah, it's funny because there's like this. I think there's this resonance that I feel with people at times, which that resonance is pain. That resonance is suffering, because I think that suffering is what connects us as humans. Like we don't want to feel alone in our suffering, but it's actually the very thing that connects us. And I think Brene Brown talks about this in terms of vulnerability, power of vulnerability. But it's like that's like the willingness of like, can we like go past this like facade of how's life? How's your job? How's your business? And then what's the worst things that ever happened to you?
It's very real.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's probably what brings us the most out of the suffering, which is like the connection of the suffering, which is so real. Because otherwise you're viewing everything. There is a very deep negativity bias once you're in a loop, a negative loop, an anxious loop, a depressive loop. Like you'll just see everything through that lens. And then you have this storyteller part of your brain. I don't know if you've ever done like integrated family systems work, like IFS, but like you basically identify different parts of who you are.
We had a very long conversation about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And it's very clear to me, at least for myself, that there's a storyteller part of me whose entire job is to give me randomized thoughts at any given moment, and if I don't have a buffer in between that storyteller and the rest of my parts and my emotions, I feel psychotic. It's like, because you overweight the thoughts, you judge the thoughts, and then of course the storyteller is going to loop into the momentum of, oh, this thing is happening, I'm feeling negative, I'm going to see all the negativity that's there.
It's like you get the 99 really positive emails and you get the one, like,
totally,
and that's all you can see.
I just like a good way to, like, the reverse of this is like, if there's a couple that's like in love and they go somewhere and like it's the best place ever, I just so don't trust them. I'm like, you're on oxytocin, I'm like, they're in love, like in the most beautiful way.
Oh, they're like recommending a restaurant.
They're so happy with each other. It's so beautiful. And they're like so like drunk on each other.
So they recommend this restaurant. They recommend going to.
And I'm like, I don't know, like, I'll go,
So you only take advice from people who are bitter and twisted.
Somewhere in between, Yeah, not the cynics,
Yeah.
But there's something neurochemically probably that's a bias one way or the other.
That's a good point, actually. I guess there's always the perspective, because I think about, it's my attitude. How do I choose to see this pile of shit that's arrived on my doorstep?
Yeah.
I like that.
Don't trust couples in love.
Don't trust couples in love.
Look, Yelp was made from people that had the Yelp reviewers. Like, these people they're the best.
Honestly, Yelp and Google reviews and YouTube comments, Amazon reviews.
Like, they took time.
Best thing on the internet.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need it. It's real, it's authentic. When they're not like pain, it's like, remember there's like this pair of leggings. I think it was by Amazon or something. And the review was, this chick like slid down a mountain on like rocks.
Was it like a video review?
No, it was like type. She was like, these leggings survived me sliding down a mountain on my butt with no tears. And I was like, it was a lot more descriptive than that. And I was like, yeah, of course it did.
Sliding down mountains. Yeah.
It's trust. Like I related to the struggle of this person. I was like, yeah, I've been in that situation where I like slid down a hill on my bum and, pants not survived.
Yeah.
that's trust, it's relatability.
It's unbelievable. It's like, who's writing that when that story didn't happen? It's very real.
Interesting. Maybe there's the whole thing of like, this review is real, this experience is not. I like this. It kind of gets me thinking of just like this. I feel like we're moving towards this whole, there's like a lightness around like this whole thing. Like either one of us could die in a second, hopefully not, touch wood. But this whole thing's a joke, and I feel like for so long I have to catch myself when I'm in that mode, because I still go there, like to your point about the OCD and like the mental loops, like that's, by the sounds of things, like your vehicle to that's your vehicle for self-discovery, for self-analysis. But at the same time, like I've tried to be so serious about life. I've tried to like prove myself. It's tiring.
It's exhausting.
And I just want to be like,
even when you're suffering, even if it's really bad, you can be light.
Yeah. I think that's the magic trick. I think there was a story of the Buddha. No, not the Buddha. Who's the guy who Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama and some, I can't remember, but it was like, Desmond Tutu.
Okay.
I think this happened. Maybe not. Fact check.
Podcast, you can just say anything.
Yeah, I can say anything. Desmond Tutu and sat together. And all they did was just like giggle. For like, they just giggled.
That's awesome.
Because they both reached this place of just like,
yeah, it's all crazy.
And so they just get to this point of giggling.
It is you said death, which is such a weird word for all of us. We're like, and it feels so uncomfortable. So much of the root of your anxiety and depression is like really deep down in levels, like so unperceptible, is a root fear of death. That is like, that we also take our life so serious. And that doesn't mean it shouldn't be sacred or it shouldn't be appreciated, but like,
do you think
even if we were the president and we're the most important figure in history, does it really matter? Like, is it even that much more serious? Like I don't know. And it doesn't seem like being more serious helps you do that job more mindfully, and be a better person. So why?
Be cool if the president was like super mindful though. I think we'd be living in a slightly different time. Oh damn! I had a thing I was going to say that then got lost. Pin drop.
Not the Buddha.
Not the Buddha. The giggling.
Giggling.
Yeah. No. This idea of, I mean, I think that's like the root thing of everything is fear of death. Like, oh yeah, here we go. Now that you've got to this place, this pinnacle of life, where you have this business, you have all the things that you supposedly are supposed to get this place of, I don't know, ecstasy, something. Do you think that makes it easier to kind of face, well, what if you did nothing else? I think we have this idea of expectation with ourselves, and then like the death thing is, I feel like a lot of people's like, I haven't accomplished anything, or like I haven't done what I set out to do. And so I'm curious, like as you go through life, like how, when you're hitting accomplishments and achievements that you have set for yourself, like how that changes like your reframe of how you look at the rest of your life. Is it still like tick boxes? Like where do you go from here? What else do you want to do?
I think literally the only thing I want is peace. Like that's it. And maybe that wantingness is what's like putting it beyond reach. I don't want to accomplish anything else. Like I will naturally go and do more things in the world. I'd like to be at enough peace to have a family and like raise a child and do that. I think it would be really beautiful. But I feel like I haven't had enough peace to do that, or I haven't found the peace and space to do that. And so like outside of nothing work related, nothing, I don't care. Like it's all great and fun and entertaining, but like that's it. And it can be really purposeful, like I want to build a place where people want to do their life's work, or they just enjoy showing up, or it creates value in the world. I think that's fun and cool and awesome, but it's not as fulfilling as I thought it would be. And I think that's a good thing, actually. I think that would be deeply problematic if it was. And my ego has definitely had to deal with the pullback of that, which it was entirely rooted on success and working, and when you lose stability, you then want nothing else but stability. Like you can't even enjoy the fruits of all of that. And I think when I do feel at peace again, I hope the wisdom of that suffering stays, and that it's not just, I want more, I want to want the same thing and just stay in peace and maybe build a family and great friends. And I always tell people, like, what would you do differently in your life if you were put on the front page of the best publication or thing that you've ever wanted to be on top of, and then you had $10, $20 million in your bank account, and I'll buy this house, I'll do this thing. But then what? Like, people can usually come up with the first, like, couple things, and then you're not going to get new friends. That'd be really weird. If your day-to-day changes that much, and obviously I don't want to speak from a place of, like, this is a place of privilege. Like, some people need to pay their bills and need to, like, they haven't even had the space to think above the waterline, so, like, just with that huge caveat of, look, most people are like, dude, I just need the money to, like, survive, and then I can think about what to do with it, which is, like, of course, very true. But then beyond that, I think there's so many people that are in this diminishing marginal return graph of the more you work and the more you get is absolutely not correlated to your enjoyment of life. And we all hear that. And it's like these things, it's like these isms we hear on all these podcasts. We hear them all the time. We hear about acceptance or alignment, and they don't really land, and sometimes you listen to something and it lands, and that means you're ready to receive the wisdom of whatever that was. And, like, acceptance is the ultimate thing. You probably in depression, whatever, could intellectualize, I'm depressed, and you could tell people, and I know it's good to share with other people, and it's smart to share in the suffering. And then there's probably a moment where you actually turned and you actually, at a subconscious level, accepted it fully.
Yeah, it was acceptance, then it's gratitude. Like, it was, loved everything you just shared. Great bit. Great clip.
Clip it. No one's listening to the full thing. Clip it.
But it's, and I've shared this several times, and I'll keep sharing it again, but the epitome of the thing that I'm enjoying in life right now is my very dear friends live a block from me.
That's a huge luxury. It's amazing.
2 friends have like within 2 blocks.
I love that.
One of them has just had they've got a 9-month-old baby.
Okay. And I'm the other one.
You're the other one. Who is the baby? And so it's the text I'm getting the last few weeks is like, last minute backyard hangs, free tonight.
Yeah. And
I never knew, like, the sense of, like, oh my God, this is the pinnacle of life. I don't need or want anything more.
I love that.
Like, it sounds so insane because I have, like, basic needs are met. I'm working, I have a home, I have friends, I have friends and community. Like, I have this strive for a sense of belonging. That's what I was searching for.
Yeah.
That sense of peace was, I think, in that sense of belonging within myself, but also then in community. And it's there, and it's so simple. And then, like, now, cool, maybe this scales, maybe this just ends with, like, 14 conversations with some randomers in this room with the coolest plant that you want to chop the leaf off.
I'm waiting just for the angle. Yeah, I think what you just said is so true. One of the most undervalued thing is a hyper locality of friends, or like having friends and or family within 5 to 10 minutes of either a drive, a bike, or a walk, because there's a randomness where you'll bump into someone and it'll make your day. We cannot live in isolation. Like, I really even believe, like, nuclear families, like, some people are amazing at it, but a family becomes a super organism, it needs to see outside of itself, or even a relationship becomes this, like, its own being, and so I think having friends and family within 5, 10, 15 minutes, it's the greatest joy of life.
Yeah. It really is. Like, I ran into them when I was walking home from here one day, and it was just like, oh my God, here you are. Yeah, and I saw the baby's first time on a bike. I was like, ah! And I get all the throes of, like, watching a baby grow up, which I've never been around. I've never been in such close proximity to. Like, I've obviously seen babies and kids, like, but, like,
no one's allowing me near their children.
No, it's like I have a bar. I'm barred from them. But, like, I'm being in close proximity with, like, a life that's being that's growing right now. And it's such, and I don't have to deal with all the like
the shit.
the other shit.
You're looking at the
actual
parents.
shit.
It's so funny too, because you're looking at parents and you're like, even if you're perfect, you're gonna uniquely fuck up that kid.
Yeah.
You know, and in the nicest way. You know, I tell this to everyone I talk to. It's like we're all uniquely messed up in our own way. You know, and it's not your fault.
And it's so endearing because like I'm watching them be parents, and I'm like, I'm so proud of them. I'm so proud of the way that they're like raising this child and like navigating.
So cool.
It's such like just even that feeling of being able to be proud of my friends and like say to my friends I love them and say I love you and like all these people. It's just like that. I thought at one point I needed all the money and the house and the relationship and all the stuff, but just like those things, that it's the ability to see that, the nuances of just living by the fact that I biked 5 minutes. My home was a 5-minute bike away from here.
Yeah,
I love that. You know,
it's the best.
And that's the attitude. Like I think is.
What are you gonna do? Get a castle in England? You know, like really? You know, like you make a bunch of money, you buy a bigger box, you buy a nicer bike to sit in the same place and be with the same people.
That's what I do with my 20 million. Do I have 20 million?
Sure.
Okay. Question 2. What would you do with 20 million?
I'd probably not make any big life decisions.
Good idea.
For a minute, because it's probably a drug.
Yeah.
And like the feeling, and then not much. It's the funny part. Like literally, I take a vacation. I would take a vacation for a little bit. I would take more like a sabbatical, and like the vacation's a good example of this. I don't want to take this like escape vacation. I want to like purpose, go meet with people that I love.
Go press your hand into the wall of...
go maybe bring a handful of like friends who I also know need a break in their life, and like fund a like really purposeful break so that everyone around me that I love gets the same opportunity to have a reset that I do.
Yeah.
Because then that's really interesting. Then you can like build from a space collectively.
It's no fun to have money alone.
It's kind of weird.
Like it's fun. Not that I can speak from that place, but like that doesn't seem to be interesting, you know? So yeah, I'm with you there. It'd be like a thing where everybody else gets to come along.
Yeah.